at a point in time where my family had to make a tough decision to leave our current church. Well, not our current church, our past church. And we left, and because Asa was here, I'd heard that Asa became the pastor, the youth minister at Westside. So I was like, you know what, I'll
not
go.
The pastor. Not the pastor.
Youth minister.
Don't want that job.
Youth minister. Anyway, so I was like, you know, Asa's a cool guy. He's a great speaker. I've heard him, and he loves Jesus. So I'll go check out Westside, see what they're all about. And I immediately fell in love with the ministry in that church, and now Asa and I are partners in the ministry, and it's just awesome. I love him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, man.
So, without further ado, Asa Walker.
All these intros today are such glowing. I need to come here every Friday and just be introduced. Improve my psyche. Yeah, I'm going to take another sip of coffee here.
Oh, and he loves coffee.
Like,
Partially the reason that I am now addicted.
Yes.
I got coffee converts everywhere. So I understand you're going through the book of Job. You're dealing with some of the issues that are there, some of the themes of the book, some of the theological issues that are present within the book of Job. And so we're going to try to deal with some of those today. We're gonna take them in order as they're kind of presented in the book, maybe come to some conclusions, put some brackets around what you've been thinking as part of your study of this book. Let me go ahead and answer up front the question, why the gloves, why the bandages. I can answer that really quickly. It's not a burn, it's not a cast, it's not a fashion statement, and it is not a Michael Jackson tribute. I have a skin disorder, causes my skin to be fragile, tears easily, so this is to protect it. That's all that's there for. 4 more questions are going through your mind. I'll answer those now. Yes, it's painful. No, I'm not in pain right now. No, it's not contagious. And no, I'm not going to die. At least not today.
And blue.
Not right now. What's that?
And blue.
And what?
And blue.
And blue.
Your
What does
favorite
that-
color?
What does that mean?
His favorite color.
Huh?
Favorite color.
I'm confused.
Another question going through our mind. What's your favorite color? Your favorite color.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now I got you. Let me take another swallow of this.
Go ahead, Dan.
Come on, Dave.
Okay. All right. Yeah, come on in, man. Okay, so let's talk about the book of Job. Let's talk about some of the issues within it. Okay. Book of Job, we've already studied, is it's a dialogue, it's a conversation that's bracketed by a prologue and an epilogue. And we can tell the difference between this really easily because we've got the prose sections of prologue and epilogue that kind of explain what's going on, puts the bookends on the dialogue in between. And the dialogue in between is in Hebrew. We don't see it so much in English, but in Hebrew it's all written in poetry. And so this dialogue is happening, and it's between Job and these, at first 3, and then Johnny come lately 4th, and they're all idiot friends. They're not so much idiots, but they all are going to introduce very little into this conversation. So, there are 2 questions we're going to deal with in Job, and it's going to force us to ask, whoa, that doesn't look so great. It's going to force us to ask the question of justice and the question of value. So, there's a question of justice because let's take this man at his word. Job is introduced, and not only does Job maintain that he is righteous, but the text itself is going to explain and introduce Job as a righteous. Excuse me. Sorry, it's good coffee. The text itself is going to introduce Job as a righteous man. So at no point in the text is Job going to say that he is sinless. At no point is he going to make that assertion. However, he is going to maintain his righteousness. Now, we know the issues that are inherent in that. We know the issue of there are none righteous, no, not one. every human has fallen short of the glory of God, that we're inherently sinful and evil. But let's take it at face value and let's say, yes, Job is a righteous and upright man before God. So we have this question now, if that's true, then how is it that a just and loving God allows this curse, this plague, this issue, whatever it is, to fall on Job? How is it that God would allow that? So it's a question of justice. But then we're going to deal with a second question, and it's the question of value. And this question is going to say, is there value in following God even if all of his blessings are removed? Is there value in following God even if he takes away everything that he ever gave you? All the good things that you benefit from in following God. Is there value inherently in following God as God, no matter what the function of your life looks like? So these are the two questions that the book is dealing with, and it's framed in these two questions that the whole book is going to roll out these topics. So let's deal with some of the special topics. Mrs. Dagan and I talked before this, and I kind of know where you've been. And instead of wasting our time by just going through a exegesis of the book or something, let's just focus on the issues that you're dealing with. And we'll take them in order. The first thing that we see from immediately, chapter 1, the issue that raises our eyebrow is, what is this interaction between God and Satan? What is the function of Satan within this book? And so, are God and Satan playing a game? Are they making a gamble or a bet with each other? Are they using Job as kind of a pawn in this supernatural cat and mouse game that they're playing? So we have to ask the question, what is the function of Satan within the story? How does Satan operate within the story? What do you say? You guys need coffee too.
I think he's the antagonist.
Okay, antagonist. All right. Why would we say he's the antagonist?
Because he is the one that brings so much trouble to the protagonist.
Okay. So that's a very valid point. It's a very strong point. And we can see Satan in an antagonist type role, but is he truly the antagonist in the story? Is Satan a main character in this story? What is Satan's role? If we were going to give an Academy Award to the characters within the Book of Job, you know the divisions of the actor awards. You know, we've got Best Actor, and that's for the main character that's an actor, and then we've got Best Actress, and this is for the best main female character. Now in the Book of Job, we have only one female character. She makes only one appearance, and it's Job's wife. Job's wife is in the Bible Wives Hall of Fame, along with Eve and Delilah, and she's a great wife. She's got great advice for him, and you know, curse God and die. Yeah, just you can see this horrible woman. So I'd have had a response for that. Anyway, so you know she's the only woman in the book. Sorry, ladies, that's how you're represented in this book. But she's going to get the Best Actress award. But then there's another category, Best Supporting Actor, and that's pretty much where Satan is going to end up, as just a supporting character in the story. He's there at the beginning, and he's named as the initiator of these things that will happen. However, he's really not taking a central role within the story. Satan is being used. He's being used as an instrument. His place is to be used as an instrument within a broad and overarching plan of God. We see when Satan interacts within this book that God is going to be in complete control. God is not saying, hey Satan, I don't know what's going to happen here, let's just see what Job does. He knows the outcome, he knows the conclusion, and as he allows Satan to function with a plan and purpose in God's plan, he's going to put limits on him. He's going to say, Satan, you can touch this, but you can't touch that. You can do this, but you can't do that. So he puts limits on, he puts boundaries on Satan, and he says, this is how far you can go. And so we see that even Satan's function is exercised under the sovereignty of God. So what is Satan doing in this story? He's being used. God is working him into this plan. Now, that's hard to think about because we see Satan as the eternal, the antagonist, and the one that's opposed to God, the enemy of God. But God has authority and sovereignty over Satan. And we see that expressed no clearer than in this first chapter of Job. Now, let's deal with the issue of the friends. The friends are embodying a particular theology. It's very popular in the Old Testament, it's popular throughout the New Testament, and it's even in existence today. Anyone know what it's called? It starts with an R. It's a particular theology expressed by the friends. And the outworking is you're suffering, so you must have some kind of sin. You must have sinned at some point. What is this called? What was it? No, but that's interesting. Interesting guess. This is called Retribution Theology. Yeah, you were close, kind of. Okay, Retribution Theology. Now, what Retribution Theology says is that the suffering in your life is a result of sin that you have done. That God is getting back at you for having violated his principle. Now, here's the problem with that. We know that the scripture tells us, the Bible is clear, that there is a cost to our sin. And we're not just talking about the cost of Jesus on the cross, but we're talking about the outworking of sin in our life. The Bible warns, if you live a life of sin, you will suffer the result of that. If I choose to go and do something particularly sinful, it can cost me dearly. If I choose to go and get drunk somewhere one night and just completely smashed and hammered, and I get in the car and I go flying down the road, I have a car accident, I kill somebody and I suffer with that, I get a DUI and I suffer with that, and so that suffering has outworked from my sin. Now, that's one thing. That's a cause and effect relationship, and we know that biblically that is true. But what these guys are going to say is the opposite. They're going to say not because you have sinned, now you will suffer. They're going to say you are suffering, therefore you must have sinned. The difference is, instead of looking at my life and saying, okay, I got drunk and then I drove my car and I wrecked and killed somebody and I went to jail. Instead of seeing that, the difference is me driving down here to Shands Hospital and walking through the hallways as those people suffer physically in illness and say, all right, all you sinners, you ready to repent? You're in here because you sinned. I wonder what sin you've got over there, room 237A. I see you. I bet you're whatever. That's retribution theology. That God is getting back at the person who has done something wrong. And so it's almost the conspiracy theory level of cause and effect. Instead of saying sin is the cause and suffering is the effect, they're saying the effect must mean the cause. So they're essentially saying all suffering must be the result of sin. We know that that's not true. What's that?
Fallible sign.
It is. It's very fallible logic. It's fallacious logic. And so these people will time and time again bring Job back to this conclusion that there must be, on some level, somewhere, there's some kind of sin going on. And Job, time and again, will maintain there's not. I've been righteous. My family is righteous. I don't know why this is happening to me. And that's why Job will ask the question over and over and over again, why would God allow this to come upon me? No one can explain it. That is the next theme of the book, the next question in the book. And it reveals the failure of human logic, the failure of human wisdom. Within the context of the canon of Scripture, we have, the book of Proverbs is all about wisdom. And it's all these universally stated principles of if you do this, if you live wisely, if you live righteously, this is going to be the result. if you live this way, if you walk in wisdom, then this is going to be the positive result. And we get to the book of Job and we see that this is the big asterisk on that says, but maybe not always. Maybe sometimes God has a different plan. And so this is, within the canon of Scripture, Job is a balance to the book of Proverbs that says, wisdom is this, wisdom is great, wisdom is wonderful, and then Job says, but will wisdom always give us the answer? And the answer is no. The question of why within this book is never going to be answered. Question why is never going to be answered. That's the question that Job is going to ask time and time and time again. He's going to say, why? Would you say that this book is chronicling a test of Job? Is Job going through a test? Okay, what is the purpose of a test within the framework of God? Why do we, now this is not temptation. The Bible makes it clear that God does not tempt somebody to sin. But we know that there is a test going on here. What is the purpose of a test? David.
It's almost like how truly, I guess, loyal are you to God?
Okay, so to test loyalty.
To make him stronger.
The purpose of a test is to build one's faith. Purpose of a test, build one's faith. Now, here's the problem with the why question and why it goes unanswered. If the purpose of a test is to build someone's faith, if you think about the times in your life where you've gone through something where you wanted to know why, it was really difficult for you to deal with, and you had to cling to God. You had to turn to Him, and you had to fall on Him because there's this massive hole in the why question. That built your faith precisely because you did not know the answer why. If God were to say, let's have a test, here's why you're going through it, He has removed from you the very aspect of faith. He's removed the unknown, whereby faith is no longer required. And so if the purpose of a test is to build your faith, but telling you why you're going through the test would remove faith from you, then you've defeated the purpose, and it's not really a test, because by definition it's not meeting up. So the why question goes unanswered because the very purpose in Job walking through this is to test him, to build his faith. And if he says why, the purpose goes out the window. Yeah, question.
Why would Satan approach God then? God didn't initiate the test.
Or did he?
David.
So,
But that's exactly it. Did he?
Have you seen my servant Job?
well, in a very roundabout way.
Can Satan just waltz into heaven without God leaving?
So let's return to the first chapter. So the angels, they're prancing in, and does Satan come before God and stand out? Actually, we see that God says, He looks at Satan and says, "Where have you been?" Sorry to make you Satan.
That's alright, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Ew, I thought he was pointing Christian.
Oh, killed!
Oh snap. So he actually points out Satan and he says, "Where have you been?" And Satan walks forward and he says, "I've been walking to and fro in the earth and up and down it." And then God says, "How about Job? Have you considered Job?" And then it's almost like Satan gets a brilliant idea. "Oh, but you protect him, and if you took that away, this would happen." And Satan goes into the deceiver, the accuser, all those modes that he's named for. So, good point, but I don't know if we press it to the wall that we could say that Satan is the one that initiates this. If we press it to the wall, we at least can't say with certainty. But good point. So, if human wisdom were to be complete, if human wisdom were to fill in that question why, it would defeat the very plan and purpose of the test. Any test, whatever it is, it would overcome it. And so, by nature, our wisdom must fail if we are to grow in faith. By nature, our wisdom must fail. Now, let me tell you, let me illustrate why it's not going to be by Job getting his questions answered in the end that he becomes satisfied. At the end of this long debate back and forth between these friends, which, by the way, did you catch in chapter 2, Job is sitting and pouting, and his friends come and sit with him, and no one says anything for a week. Did you catch that in chapter 2? Can you imagine that? Can you just imagine what that would be like? Like, Brayton, we went to New York Deli one time, and you were distraught over something in your life. Yeah, you were crying and everything. Sorry, I hope I'm not embarrassing you. Imagine if we went to the New York Deli and we sat at that table in the back for a week and we didn't say anything. We just sat there and stared at each other. They throw us out of the restaurant, they call police, they think something weird was up, they think our relationship is strange. And so the question of why, the question of why is so intense for these people, and the pressure and the pain, it's so intense that when they get there, they just sit and they wait. And then, after a week of sitting and waiting, Retribution Theology is the best that they can come up with, and they start saying, oh, Job, something must be wrong in your life. And Job keeps saying, no, that doesn't answer the question. They're providing all kinds of answers, but the question is never really satisfied. Here's when it becomes satisfied. God appears in the final scene, in the final turn of the book. He appears in a whirlwind, and he begins speaking to Job. Will he ever answer for Job the why question? Does he ever explain to Job why he suffered? That's the question that's been asked. Why am I suffering, and why is a righteous God doing this to me, a righteous man who doesn't deserve this? Will he ever answer the question why? He never will. And here's why he won't. I'm a single guy. There are a lot of reasons that I enjoy being single. I'm not married. Maybe one day I will be, in God's plan. But I can give you a list right now of reasons why I enjoy being single.
Your list is sad.
My list is sad, Brady?
Yes.
Well, you're one to speak. Hey, here's one thing to learn about me. If you can dish it, you better be able to eat it.
Yeah, man.
So, freedom. I can go where I want. I can do what I want. I don't have to call home. I don't have to say, hey, can I go here with my friends? Can I do this? It's just, the opportunity's there, I go. And there's no one back at home. I don't have anyone living at home. I don't have any pets at home. So I could just leave home for days and never go back, and everything would be fine when I got there.
You have a new pet cockroach?
It's dead.
You hope
It
it's
is
dead.
dead.
You don't know.
It is
You
dead.
You
pray.
could have just mutated it.
So
without
I've two Wednesday nights ago, I told a story. I was illustrating Paul's attitude toward the church, and I talked about how I hate cockroaches, hate roaches, and when I see one, I'm not satisfied with just like stepping on it and killing it instantly. I want it to die slow. I want it to die slowly. So I'll look for the first thing I can find that I can spray on it that I know will eventually kill it, but in time. And so it doesn't matter where I'm at. I'm gonna look for something, and then I want to follow it. I want to hang around as long as possible to watch it die, and turn and flip on its back and do that kind of stuff. So anyway, I told this story 2 Wednesdays ago, and God has a funny sense of humor, and so I'm back at home, and I'm eating a peanut butter sandwich and drinking a glass of milk, which is my nightly tradition. and it's real late on Wednesday night, about 11:30, and I'm watching Cops on TV because I love watching Cops. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, this big black dot goes across the room. Yeah, and a roach goes crawling up the wall, and I'm like, "You're funny, God. You're funny." Because now the story I just told, I'm about to reenact it. I grabbed some Windex. That was the closest thing I found. I sprayed it. It ran in between the blinds or something, and I found it dead the next day. It's dead. It's dead. And then because I saw one in my house, no one. Stop the tape for a moment. Stop the tape.
No, don't.
So
I'm not stopping it.
I got online and I ordered some insecticide that I guess I really shouldn't have. You need a license to put it down. I got the strongest stuff I could find. I sprayed that house top to bottom. Anything that goes in there now is going to be dead. Be dead. So rather that than roaches. So anyway, all that for free. Commercial's over. Now back to the show. Money. Maybe I don't have enough money yet. I don't have all the money for everything I want. I know I don't have all the money for everything I want and everything she wants. So, that's a great thing about being single, is I can spend all my money on me, selfishly. And I don't have to worry about it. And then I could say, what's a third reason that, a third objection that I might have to marriage. I'm 26, so I'm not really in this category anymore, but for many people, they feel like they're just too young. And they say, I need to advance a stage in my life. I need to get to the next level of maturity before I can handle what a marriage relationship is going to require. Or there might be this objection for me personally. If she doesn't drink coffee, it ain't working out. The first date is always to the coffee shop, and I'm gonna see what she orders. And if we go into Starbucks and she embarrasses me by getting a hot chocolate, it's over. It's over. So I've got all of these objections.
Terrible.
Be picky. Get
It's
the
like
one
not
you're gonna
dating a girl
stick
because they won't
with.
ride a roller coaster with you.
I could get over that one. I could get over that. You just don't know how dear this is to me. Coffee is not just about drinking. It's a bonding experience.
True.
What if she's a Samsung user?
Oh, if she doesn't use that, someone asked me that in the last class.
Yeah.
It ain't happening.
Oh.
If someone's not,
I feel like that golden calf is really coming out right now.
if she's not an Apple user, she ain't redeemed. So.
Oh my god.
Okay, Brayden sent me this picture last night. It says, now the iPhone's coming in gold. Does it also come shaped like a calf? And I wrote back, well, does your droid come shaped like a garbage can?
Oh!
Burninated.
So here are all these objections. And as I approach a serious relationship and I approach the question of marriage, in fact, one of my closest friends just got engaged last night. And it was really cool to see that and to celebrate with that couple. I'll tell you later. And so it wasn't the one you're thinking.
Okay.
I look at this and I try to overcome these obstacles. I try to answer these questions. Now, I'm going to use Mrs. Dagan to illustrate this. So Mrs. Dagan is married and your husband is Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you and Steve met and you started to approach marriage, how many of these obstacles did you work through before you decided to get married?
They no longer mattered.
None of this, you didn't work, so you didn't sit and say, Steve, I like my freedom. When we get married, that's kind of we're gonna give a little bit of that up. And Steve, do you have enough money for me? You may have asked that question. But something changed. Answers to this question didn't come, something changed. And so, they're still there and they're still present. We still have this question of freedom, and we know that something's going to change there. We still have the question of money. We know that that's always going to be an object of marriage, is how we manage our money and what we do with it. And maybe, I won't ask how young or old you were when you get married, but you maybe, and you said iced tea.
Iced tea with lemon.
Iced tea is your thing,
Yeah.
with lemon.
I like
So Steve needed to be an iced tea with lemon drinker. And so we've got that objection, but suddenly, while these are still here, they just don't matter as much. They've shrunk. They're just not as big anymore because something has entered the picture that changed everything. Love. And suddenly, marriage isn't an object anymore. Marriage isn't a category. Marriage isn't just an idea or a concept. Marriage is Steve. Marriage is something completely different. And while these objections are still here, and married couples, they can be married 50 years and still deal with these things. My grandparents were married 59 and a half years before my grandfather passed away of cancer. And they still dealt with these issues. 59 and a half years of marriage. But it didn't matter as much because something had changed the equation and it suddenly got personal. At the end of this book, we're going to see Job's question will not be answered, but something happens and God gets personal with Job. And his questions, the answers to his questions, they just don't matter as much anymore. And that moment comes in Job 42, verses 5 and 6. This is what Job says. I have heard of you by the ear. I've heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. It gets personal. God starts speaking, and all he does is say, I'm big enough for this. I'm in control of this. Who are you to question me? Who are your friends to question me? And he asserts his greatness and his sovereignty and his plan and his purpose, but he never says why. But it doesn't matter anymore because it's gotten personal. It's entered the equation. And so, Job walks away and he can be satisfied with that answer, even though he doesn't know why. Let me illustrate with my own life. So I told you at the beginning of class about the bandages and all this stuff. I was diagnosed with this when I was 2 months old. I had gone to get baby pictures done, and when I came home, I had these little socks on, and where the elastic band was around my ankle, there were these little blisters, like pinprick blisters. And so my parents took me to see a dermatologist. There were 2 dermatologists that we worked with at the time. It was one in Orlando, where I was born and grew up in O-Town, and there was a dermatologist there. She sent this biopsy to the University of Michigan to be tested. And then we went to the University of Alabama, where there was a doctor who tested a biopsy right there in his lab. So it took a few weeks for those results to come back. The first result came back in Orlando. We went to the dermatologist. She walks into the room. She picks me up. I'm just a baby. Picks me up, holds me in her arms, and begins to cry. And she tells my parents, biopsy came back, and your son has epidermolysis bullosa. And there's really not too much else that she said because she just sat and cried, held me, cried. Yeah. Then we went to the University of Alabama, back to that doctor there for his results. And he was a little less interested in bedside manner. He was a little less worried about how my parents would feel. And so he said, your results came back, your son has epidermolysis bullosa. It's called EB for short. And here's what's going to happen. He's going to live a very short life. He may live to about 5 years old, somewhere in there. It's going to be a life of pain, and then he's going to die. And so there's an institution in England that specializes in care for this type of disorder, and so my recommendation is you send him there. What he basically told my parents is, you've had this kid, now he's going to die in a few years, so put him in this institution, forget that you had him, and try again. Obviously, my parents weren't going for that. Went back home to Orlando, and there's a third doctor in the mix. He was our pediatrician. This guy was a man of God. He would, when kids came into his office, parents, he'd sit there, he'd do the exam, he'd pull out his prescription pad, and as he's writing the prescription, he'd take a knee and pray with and for that patient. Incredible man. And my parents went and saw him, and he knew all the issues, and he started doing some research, and it was between him and my parents that they came up with this idea of doing the wrappings and wearing the gloves. and this protects from infection. It helps keep the skin from tearing. The gloves are really there because there's an issue with this called mitten deformity, where if there's skin that's torn in between the fingers, after a time they fuse together, first like this, and the thumbs fuse under, and then the fingers over the top of the thumb, and then this is all that's left with the hands, and so you can't really use them. So the gloves keep the fingers separated and kind of prevent that from happening. So we go back to see this doctor in Alabama, and my mom has this new wave of excitement over the potential for the future, and she's going on and on about, but we're doing these bandages now, and we're using this ointment to keep out infection, we're doing these gloves to keep his hands separated, and this and this and this. She's going on, and the guy stopped her and said, "Lady, listen to me. Your son has epidermolysis bullosa, and nothing is going to change that. And bandages can't help your kid, and gloves can't help your kid, and God himself is not going to help your kid. He's going to live a short life of pain. He's going to die, so get over it." We left the office, never went back to him. In fact, it was very soon after that we never went back to any dermatologist. And that kind of became the theme of my life, that God himself was going to help this kid. And so I remember when I was a teenager, 15, 16 years old, it was the first time that I really came to a point in my life where I started asking the question, why? Why, with this rare disorder, 1 in 50,000, astronomically high rate of incidence, or low rate of incidence, very rare. Why am I the one out of 50,000? Why me? Why do I have to deal with this? And I started asking that question, and became something I was asking for regularly, and I was just like standing by and waiting for an answer. Here, 10, 11 years later, I cannot give you an answer. I still don't know the answer to that question. But back when I was a teenager, the message that I got, the word that I got back from God was, wait and see. Wait and see. And I was satisfied with that answer, because I have to understand that even if my human wisdom fails me in answering the question why I have to go through day-to-day life like this, I can fall back on the fact that because I know God's plan and purpose has got to be greater and beyond my wisdom, I am better this way, because it is his plan, it is his purpose, it is his willing. Job will never get an answer. I'll probably never get an answer, but I can be satisfied because it's personal for me. And I trust and I fall back on God. There's one more theme of the book. There's one more answer to the question that comes, and it doesn't come in anything that God says to Job in the context of this book, but it comes later. When Jesus Christ walks onto the scene, and a true, righteous, sinless, holy person suffers. And he does it for you, and he does it for me. And so, as Job is saying, why is it, how is it just, how is it loving that I, who have followed your commands, have to come under this torment, this curse, this test? How is this even possible? Why is this happening? The ultimate answer is when God himself takes on the suffering of you and of me. And he gets on a cross and he dies for us. So, the ultimate answer in Job points to something that will happen 1,000 years or more later, when Jesus Christ, God himself, gets personal with us. And that's why the theologian F.I. Anderson says this, that Jesus Christ has embraced and absorbed the undeserved consequences of evil as the final answer to Job and all the Jobs of humanity. We'll never know the answer to why. Human wisdom will fail us, but it has to fail us. But God is asserting himself personally your life and in mine. And that's the ultimate answer in the book of Job. That's all I've got for you today, and I think we've got some more time. Did we end earlier this time? Okay. What time are we done?
You have till 5 after.
Okay, so we've got just a couple minutes then. What questions do you have for me?
Why apple?
Why not? It's perfect.
How did you get to the point where you were like satisfied with what you're going through, even not knowing the answer to why?
I think that point came when I understood how I looked back on my life and I understood how God had guided so many choices, and I saw how things would be so massively different if I hadn't gone through the choices that I did. And when you see God personally at work in your life, when you truly come to an understanding that God is at the center of all things, all of this exists for Him, all of this is about Him, all of this is for Him, even us, we're for and about Him, but yet He chooses to personally intervene in our lives. He's that loving and that caring and that real, personal to us. That's when that enters the equation. That moment happens, and we'll carry those questions and those objections, and we'll ask why over and over again, but it's just so small in light of who He is. And it's that moment, it's coming to that moment that I think really changes it. It's a game changer. Yeah.
As far as the money thing goes, I think marriage is an opportunity for money, not necessarily a way of sucking money out. Because if you have 2 incomes with one household, one TV, one kitchen, one stove, you're actually creating a system to where 2 people could live off of one income and the other income could be saved.
It's gonna be a crappy house and a really nice job.
It's okay. It's only going to be for a little while.
I guess in a roundabout way that's true, but I have zero experience in that, so I don't even know how to
Because I'm sure
direct
she'd
you
be
in that.
really happy eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner.
And a glass of milk, though.
Killing roaches with Windex.
That's right. That's every woman's dream right there. I tell you what, that's the fairy tale. Yeah. I don't know, man.
Don't worry. Asa.
Conceivably, yes, but you won't want to. You won't want to.
Don't worry,
Payne's
Asa.
got like
Me and
hundreds of thousands.
me and Clint are working on you getting you a wife. Don't worry.
Find you a woman, dude.
There are so many people working on that.
We're starting the cult following.
He said they're working on getting me a wife, and there's an elderly woman in our church who
Matchmaker.
yes, she came to me in January. She goes, Asa, now honey, I'm gonna get you a wife. I'm gonna bring you a wife. Now don't be picky. When I bring you one, don't be picky. I'm like, good God, what am I gonna do? Yeah, it's part of the job. Okay, what other questions do you have?
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a sister. She's 6.5 years older than me. She lives well, she just moved from Tampa to Naples, and she's an architect. And I'll show you a picture of. This is my brand new nephew. They just had a baby, and his name's Emilio, and he's a really cool guy. So he's gonna be a cool kid. My heart melts when I see that picture. Oh, my little buddy. I got to be the first one to hold him after his dad held him, and then even before my sister got to hold him, I got to hold him. That was really cool. Yeah, another question here.
I have another question about the why thing.
Okay.
So do you think it can become a sin, kind of, if you keep asking why instead of just accepting the fact that something happened? Like, not really a sin, but do you think it can be, like, destructive for you?
Yes, I think it can be destructive. I think that we'd have to be careful in labeling it a sin, because we see all this happening in the book of Job, and we see that Job sustains through this without sinning. He never does curse God and die, even though he's questioning very adamantly. And in that moment that we read where it got personal, he says he repents. So we see that destructive element there, and we see what a distraction this has been. I mean, we've got pages upon pages of utterly useless conversation. I mean, it's useful and instructive to us, but Job goes around with his friends, and suddenly God steps in and says, "And who are you all to talk?" And so it can be destructive, yes. It can certainly get us caught up, and it can be a distraction in taking some aspect of life, some aspect of God and his character, some aspect of the human experience, and focusing on that rather than focusing on the overall plan of God, which is for his glory and for your good. And so, yes, I think it can be an element of destructivity in that. I might have made that word up. David.
So, you can suffer because of testing and suffer because of punishment.
The friends theory is you're being punished.
Right, but I'm saying in life right now, there's two reasons why you
Are you talking as a believer?
as a believer.
Okay. I don't know that you suffer for punishment. Punishment happened on the cross. That was atonement. That was the consequence of sin. Now, you will put yourself in a position to suffer the natural consequence of sin's outworking in your life, but the punishment for that has already been paid. That's already been satisfied. So I think you can see you're suffering maybe because you're going through a test and God is using something to build your faith. Maybe that seems to be the message of Job. Or maybe you're suffering because of your own stupidity.
So, what if you can see your own stupidity? You're like, okay, I'll solve this, but then it's like you're still suffering. Then you don't really necessarily need to ask God why, because the answer is what it's going to be. Wait and see, because of what you said earlier. If he tells you the answer, then the suffering is pretty much pointless.
Well, sometimes our stupid moments will pay for much longer than we ever thought. You know, there are people. The phrase that I use is there are people all over the world that at 50 years old are paying for a stupid mistake they made at 15. And that's why Satan is a deceiver. Because in a moment of temptation, sometimes we'll give the rest of our life for something that will be just a moment, a fleeting moment of some kind of pleasure or something that we want to do. So pain and suffering can emanate years beyond a moment of stupidity that we have in our lives. I think that's what you mean. Does that work itself through to build our character? Yes, I think so. But consequences can go well beyond our years. Okay, what other questions do you have? Are we done?